Radhe Radhe, welcome to Radha Madhav Dham, and we are all very fortunate to have Sushree Diwakari Devi Diwakari Devi conducting this sadhana program for Jagadguru Diwas, and you all are here. Welcome to all of you. Let me give a brief intro of Diwakari Devi. Sushree Diwakari Devi studied the deepest aspect of the philosophy of our Sanskrit scriptures and devotional music of India under the direct guidance of our Supreme Acharya Jagadguru Shree Kripaluji Maharaj. Since then, she has been providing satsang throughout the United States and different parts of the world. Didiji's charming and uplifting speeches awaken the mind and stir the soul, while her Nam Sankirtan enters deep in the heart of the devotees, inspiring them with devotion for Radha Krishna. I request all of you to please listen to her discourse very attentively and kindly switch off your phone or put them in silent mode. I now request, as a token of our respect to Diwakari Devi, I request Chetna Tripathi to offer her a bouquet.
श्रीमद सद्गुरु सरकार की लाडली लाल की दिवाकरी प्रपन्ना गुरु पादा रविन्दयोः तस्य प्रेरणया तस्य दिव्यादेशम् वदाम्यहम् मन्नाथः श्रीजगन्नाथो मद्गुरुः श्री जगद्गुरु मदात्मा सर्वभूतात्मा कृपालु गुरवे नमः। ध्यानमूलम् गुरोर्मूर्तिः पूजा मूलम् Gurur Padam Mantramulam Gurur Vakyam Bhaktimulam Gurur Kripa Guru Kripalur Mama Sharanam Vandeham Sadguru Charanam Vandeham Sadguru Charanam Vandeham Sadguru Charanam Yo Brahmanam Vidadhati Purvam Yo Vai Vedanscha Prahinoti Tasmai Tagvangha Devamatma Buddhi Prakasham Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye. What's going on? There's nobody on the back of my... Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय। Respected devotees of Sri Maharaj Ji, respected viewers, Radhe Radhe. During his dissension, Radha Avatar Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ji, he was leading kirtan and going somewhere, chanting Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, with his devotees following behind him. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ji, during that time, he moved further along the road and he became thirsty. So just then he saw a merchant coming toward him from the opposite direction with a pot over his head. So when he came close to Mahaprabhu Ji asked him, "Do you have any water? I am thirsty." So he said, "I have no water, but I have buttermilk." So he offered his buttermilk, and Mahaprabhu Ji drank it and said, "It's very, very good, very delicious." So the merchant, he said, "Please pay me for the buttermilk." Mahaprabhu Ji said, "I have no money." He was mesmerized by the divine, stunning appearance of Mahaprabhu Ji. And so he thought he would collect payment from his entourage. So when he met them, he asked Nityanand Prabhu for money. And Nityanand Prabhu said, "If our Lord doesn't have it, we don't have it." In any case, he moved on with his pot. And when he reached home, he found, when he set his pot down, he found that his pot was filled with pearls and diamonds. So he was immediately thrilled to see all the riches in his pot, but then a thought crossed his mind. And he thought, Mahaprabhuji touched my pot and this is what happened. But had he touched me, what could have happened? My entire being would have been filled with his bhakti, his devotion. So during the descension of Mahaprabhuji, there were many souls aspiring and desiring closeness with Mahaprabhuji. At the tender age of 24, when after renouncing his widowed mother and his young wife, when Mahaprabhuji decided to enter the austere life of sanyas, people pleaded and begged him, Mahaprabhuji, please don't do this. But Mahaprabhuji was firm and unmoved in his decision. So when the barber, when he started to shave his head of his elegantly beautiful tresses, one of his friends, Mahaprabhuji's friends, he groaned. And he said, the very purpose of your descension will remain unfulfilled and unaccomplished. By taking sannyas, females and householders alike will become greatly distanced from you. Is this why your descension happened, so that you could be approached only by sannyasis? So, saying so, he said, here I pronounce a curse on you, that you will have to come back to earth, and while living the life of a householder, living the extravagant life of a householder, you will have to lavishly and abundantly bestow the bliss and the ras of bhakti in this world. So bound to the curse, Mahaprabhuji foretold his future dissensions. So at the end of his dissension over 500 years ago, Mahaprabhuji said, I will come back twice again on this earth. So to fulfill the unquenched devotional aspirations of souls like you and I, Nadia Bihari, Radha Avatar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji, a divine breeze permeated when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji appeared as Jagadguru Shree Kripaluji Maharaj in Mangad village of Pratapgarh district near Allahabad on the Sharad Purnima of October in the year 1922. From the first day, he delightfully thrilled and captivated the hearts of everyone around him with his sweet smile and serene look. Sharad Purnima is the famous full moon night of October when Shri Raseshwari Radha Rani bestowed the most intimate bliss of divine love over 5,000 years ago in Braj Dham that enticed even God Shiva. So Shri Maharaji, Jagadguru Shree Kripaluji Maharaj is lovingly called Maharajji by his devotees. Since childhood, his extraordinary virtues were noticed by everyone around. He had his early childhood in Kunda. And as was the family custom, his elderly relatives got him married at a very young age. And when he was about 14 years old, he went to Indore to study Sanskrit, grammar, and literature. And to the amazement of all the teachers in that institution, he perfected his education of Sanskrit grammar and literature within 2 years. And now he was about 16 years old and was always absorbed in bhav. Whoever saw him would have glimpsed the true love of Radha Krishna appearing in its full capacity of the highest ecstatic excitement. So remaining ecstatic in that state of absolute adoration, Sri Maharaji then moved to Chitrakoot and Sharbhang and graced many, many souls over there. He in fact spent a few months. And in the same state of divinely absorbed consciousness, he then moved to Mahoba district. And there some devotees found him in unconscious state, and they brought him to their homes. The pious people who saw Sri Maharaji were amazed at his state of bhav, and they took the privilege to bring him to their homes. In this way, Sri Maharaji stayed at the homes of various families for sometimes a few hours to a few days. And in those days, Sri Maharaji, day and night made no difference to him whatsoever. In those days, people used to call him Paramhansaji, because he was always absorbed in the highest ecstasy of Radha Krishna love. He remained in that state of divine, that very elevated, supreme divine consciousness for 2 years. And for those 2 years, Sri Maharaji did not touch water or food. And whoever fed him, however much, he would eat. And so from there, in around 1940, Sri Maharaji came to Vrindaban, swooning while he uttered Krishna, Krishna, dancing in ecstasy, chanting loudly in ecstatic excitement. His divine presence thrilled the hearts of anyone and everyone who saw him during that time. And so devotees longing for that ras, they came from Mathura and took Sri Maharaji to their home. So now Sri Maharaji decided to introduce the true nectar of Braj Ras for the good of the souls. Being divinely absorbed, it was difficult for him to communicate. And so he subsided his bhav, his ecstasy, to a certain extent for the good of the souls, and to reveal the bliss, the ras of Krishna love for the good of the souls in the form of satsangs. And those satsangs contain or consist of the chantings of the divine names and the leelas and the virtues of Sri Radha Krishna. So in this way, Sri Maharaji gave satsangs in the homes of various families in Mathura and Agra, Allahabad, and so on. So even though Sri Maharaji had subsided his bhav to a considerable amount, to extent, he was, even while satsang was going on, Sri Maharaji was always remained in that bhav, in ecstasy. When Raseshwari Radha Rani descended on earth over 5,000 years ago, she distributed the nectar of Braj Ras in Braj. But Sri Maharaji distributed the same ras everywhere, anywhere and everywhere he conducted satsangs. And so the Sankirtans, or the programs that Sri Maharaji gave in those days, Sankirtan programs, were like a vivid glow of Sri Radha Krishna love. that touched every heart, inspired anyone and everyone who was there, and for anyone who was longing, thrilled the heart of anyone who was longing for Krishna love. And those who witnessed, when they were there in Sri Maharaj's satsang, they witnessed the supreme bhav of Sri Radha Rani's love in him. And during satsang, the 8 sattvic bhav, or expressions of divine love, were seen in Sri Maharajji. Often, sometimes he would dance, and sometimes he would laugh, and sometimes he even fainted. Often Sri Maharajji revealed the ras, the bliss of Haribol chanting in that bhavavesh state. And the devotees who saw him in that state called him Mahaprabhuji. Mahaprabhuji. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji, who was the descendant of Sri Radha, he showered the bliss of Krishna name through the chanting of Hare Ram Sankirtan, and also revealed the most amazing ecstatic Radha bhav through his chanting of Haribol Kirtan. And this ras was revealed only in that bhavavesh state. And so the eminent love of Sri Radha Krishna Leelas were revealed during the descension of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji. And the same expressions and the same ras, the same expressions of divine love were seen and revealed and manifested in Sri Maharaj's divine personality when he chanted Sri Haribol chanting and Hare Ram chanting. And so Sri Maharajji has been, during his 90 years on earth, he freely and abundantly distributed that same ras that was revealed during the descension of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji. So bhavavesh, we can try to understand it in this way. In a highly elevated state of bhavavesh, a Braj Gopi is seeing Sri Krishna. So her ever-increasing love, known as Anurag in Hindi, multiplies and magnifies Sri Krishna's ever new loving beauty. So in that state, the growing fascination of the enticing beauty, in that state of the growing fascination of the enticing beauty of Sri Krishna, sometimes the gopi starts dancing, laughing in excitement. And sometimes, with the thrilling delight of Sri Krishna's bewitching love, she starts dancing in ecstasy. But the exceedingly growing fascination of the love and beauty of Sri Krishna overpowers her ecstatic consciousness, and she faints. This is how bhavavesh has been described by the Rasic saints. So Sri Radha also entered into that bhavavesh state, into bhavavesh, when she went into that state of mahabhav, into mahabhav. So Sri Maharajji introduced the bliss of the same bhavavesh through his chanting of Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol. And so in that state, sometimes Sri Maharajji would laugh, Sometimes Sri Maharaj was dancing, sometimes he fainted, and again he would stand up and he would start dancing again. And so all these pictures that you see above me on the panels are expressions of that state of ecstasy that was manifested in Sri Maharaj's divine personality. In fact, in the Granth of Rupa Goswamiji, the name of that Granth or scripture is called Ujjwal Neelamani. So all of those states of bhav or divine love that are revealed and described in his scripture were seen in Sri Maharaj's divine personality. And while devotees like you and I cannot understand the depth or cannot fathom the depth of that divine state of Sri Maharaji, a saint of Gopi Bhav can appreciate the felicity of that supreme beauty in that and that state of divine love consciousness. And so resounding Uttar Pradesh with the bliss of Hari Bol, Sri Maharaji, Mathura, Agra, Allahabad, and so on, Sri Maharaji then went to Mahu in 1942. And in Mahu, Sri Maharaji freely distributed the ras of Krishna name. Freely and frequently he would visit Mandaleshwar and Maheshwar and host a week-long or 2-week-long non-stop kirtan programs, and sometimes even longer, and even near Narmada River. Once in Gopal Mandir in Mahu, Sri Maharaji had organized a 2-week-long non-stop kirtan, which gradually extended to 4 months. And every day the devotees who were participating in that, they had new, exceptional, ever new devotional experiences during that time. And all of those satsangis of Mandaleshwar and Maheshwar and Mahu were very close to Sri Maharaji. They were like family to Sri Maharaji. So the ras that Sri Maharaji bestowed during his dissension was absolutely, incredibly unbelievable. Once in the wilderness near Narmada River at Narsingh Tekri, there's a place, Sri Maharaji hosted a 2-week-long non-stop kirtan. And again, devotees were ecstatic and they had great devotional experiences. On another occasion, Sri Maharaji held a week-long non-stop kirtan. And on the bank of, or at the bank of Narmada River, and that place was called Kheri Ghat, and which is famous for a sudden rise of water when it rains. So it was rainy season. The devotees were worried that, they were worried about what might happen because it was raining. And so Sri Maharaji told them, do not worry. Feel the closeness of Sri Radha Krishna and continue doing your sadhana. And the whole program just went on smoothly, and everyone had incredible devotional experiences. So after that, in the year 1946, Sri Maharaji returned to Allahabad, and from there to Pratapgarh. And now Sri Maharaji's schedule or his routine was much more stable and formal. He was hosting satsangs from 9 p.m. in the evening till 1 a.m. in the early morning, from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m., and from 4 to 5 p.m. And not only that, Sri Maharaji started giving lectures on the philosophy of divine love and devotion and quoting from the scriptures extensively. And so when he spoke, he spoke for a few minutes up to a few hours. Once a devotee asked Sri Maharaji a question, a devotional question, and Sri Maharaji started speaking at 9 o'clock, and he kept on speaking for 8 hours at a stretch, straight. It was as though the divine scriptures, the divinity of all the divine scriptures had materialized in a living form. In a living form. So everyone there was overwhelmed with Sri Maharaji's knowledge and his satsang. Sri Maharaji also used to take devotees to Braj Dham for satsangs in Vrindaban and Barsana, and also Govardhan. And during those satsangs, Sri Maharaji remained in bhav, and devotees had very deep experiences of Sri Maharaji's divine grace and his divine dignity. Once Sri Maharaji traveled to Vrindaban accompanied by 25 or 30 devotees. In those days, Vrindaban was just mostly jungle, and it was inhabited by a few devotees and a few Mahatmas only, and that was the state of Vrindaban. So as they came closer to Vrindaban, a few evolved devotees said to Sri Maharaji that, Maharaji, we don't know what we're going to see today, but for sure we will get a glimpse of your world. Of your world. So Sri Maharaji immediately responded, and he said, what else will you see in my territory except that which I will show you? So they reverently prostrated to the sacred soils of Vrindavan. And each and every devotee that was with Sri Maharaji, individually they had the same exact thought. And what was that thought? This is the land where my beloved Shyamsundar, this is the land that my beloved Shyamsundar glorified with his countless blissful leelas. With his countless blissful leelas. And for me, every particle of the divine dust of Vrindavan Dham is more precious than my own very life breath. So it was a miracle of Sri Maharaji that each of those devotees had the exact same thought, sentiments arise in their heart at the same time. And so just then, at a short distance, their gaze was wonderstruck with an exquisite vision. With an exquisite vision. Under a tree, surrounded by hundreds of devotees, blue, rain-laden cloud-like complexioned Krishna was standing. Wearing yellow saffron clothes. His black curly locks were softly caressing his chest with the wind that was, the breeze that was blowing. His pitambar was flauntingly coming down to his knees. His neck had a beautiful garland. And his waist was elegantly embellished with a beautiful pink gachini. Standing in a Tribhangi pose, he was playing his flute. So the devotees, overwhelmed with the unfathomed grace of Sri Maharaji, all they could do was shed tears. shed tears of love. Such was the depth of the devotion and dedication of devotees in those days. Sri Maharaj was always happy with the spirit of their dedication, of their love, of their surrender. And the purity of emotions that manifested in those devotees was a direct reflection of the pleasure they gave to Sri Maharaji through their undivided loyalty and faithfulness. In the year 1955, Sri Maharaji organized a religious convention. In which prominent spiritual leaders and Mahatmas from around India participated. It lasted for 16 days. 16 days. In that convention, it was the first time that Sri Maharaji gave public discourses. Prior to that, Sri Maharaji had never given a discourse in public. But to the amazement of all the scholars and all the Mahatmas in that convention, when Sri Maharaji revealed the philosophy of soul, Maya, and God and devotion, quoting Sanskrit verses from hundreds of scriptures, they were left spellbound at his divine wisdom. Mahamahopadhyaya Giridhar Sharma, who was the president of the Kashi Vidvat Parishad. It is an apex body of 500 eminent Sanskrit scholars. So Giridhar Sharma ji was the president of Kashi Vidvat Parishad, and he was there at the time in that convention. And he was absolutely thrilled at Sri Maharaji's divine wisdom, his divine dignity, and his divine omniscience. In 1956, another convention was organized. Another convention was organized in 1956, and in that, Sri Raj Narayan Shat Shastri, who was a learned, scholarly personality and a popular figure in Varanasi. He was at that convention. And he was so overtaken by Sri Maharaji's unparalleled scriptural wisdom that on the next day, on the second day of the convention, when it was his turn to speak, he spoke. And he said, when he addressed the assembly, the audience, he said that we scholars of Kashi, we have great self-esteem of our scriptural understanding and knowledge. But personally, what I have witnessed today has truly opened my eyes. Shree Kripaluji Maharaj is not only a scholar of all the scriptures, but I am sure that he is a divine personality. He is a divine personality. I urge he said, I urge the congregation, based on what he experienced, Sri Maharaj's unfathomed divine knowledge, and at the same time, his love for Sri Radha Krishna. So Sri Raj Narayan Ji, he said that Sri Maharaj's unfathomed divine knowledge and his love for Radha Krishna that is radiating through his personality is authentication of his divine excellency. I urge the congregation to recognize his divinity and listen very carefully to his divine teachings, and not only that, imbibe his divine teachings in your life and glorify and make your life blissful forever. He further said, I'm so honored to be in his divine presence. We're so honored to have him among us. So after that, when he returned to Kashi in the year 1957, he invited, in the year 1957, on behalf of Kashi Vidvat Parishad, he invited Sri Maharaji to come and address all the scholars of Kashi and grace them with his divine wisdom. And so in 1957, Sri Maharaji went to Varanasi. And so when Sri Maharaji began his discourse, there was a mixed feeling of curiosity, admiration, and anxiousness in the hearts of the audience. But at the end of the 2-hour discourse, covering the critical topics of bhashyas and the Brahma Sutra, that invariably coordinated with the tenets of Gita, the Upanishads, and the Darshan Shastras, a sereneness prevailed in the hall. And the audience went back home with their minds full of exciting thoughts and their hearts filled and overwhelmed with affectionate admiration for Sri Maharaji. So Sri Maharaji amazed the audience with his fluent and scholarly Sanskrit. He spoke for 9 consecutive days, and on each day he gave a 2 or 3 hour lecture on each of those days. Each of those days. And in that congregation, almost all the scholars of Varanasi and many others who had come from other provinces of India, they were completely stunned. They were completely stunned because they were all thinking that they had never ever met such a personality who was well versed in all the scriptures, Vedas, Upanishads, Smritis, Upavedas, Vedanga, Brahma Sutra, Darshan Shastras, Itihas, Puranas, and the philosophies of all the preceding Jagadgurus and the writings of the Rasik saints. And not only that, Sri Maharaji was kind and humble, unabsorbed in the loving thoughts of Sri Radha Krishna and his love And his love for Sri Radha Krishna radiated through his divine personality. Through his divine personality. So it was such an event in thousands of years, that created a landmark in the divine history of Varanasi and glorified the glorious Puri of God Shiva. So now the scholars of Kashi, they unanimously agreed and they all honored Sri Maharaji with the flowers of their appreciation. They praised their extreme great fortune to have the opportunity to worship such a personality who was the supreme. They honored Sri Maharaji and worshipped him as the supreme Jagadguru of this age. Jagadguruttam. Not only Jagadguru, but Jagadguruttam. Because prior to Sri Maharaji becoming Jagadguruttam, there were 4 original Jagadgurus. Jagadguru Shree Shankaracharya, Jagadguru Shree Nimbarkacharya, Jagadguru Shree Shankaracharya, Jagadguru Shree Ramanujacharya, and Jagadguru Shree Madhavacharya. So Sri Maharaji was declared and honored with the title of Jagadguruttam, means the supreme among all the 4 preceding original Jagadgurus. And not only that, and because the nectar and the ras and the bliss of the divine names of Sri Radha Krishna, that Sri Maharaji so lavishly and abundantly showered, which was the same as the ras that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji showered during his descension over 500 years ago. Sri Maharaji was recognized as Bhakti Yoga Rasa Avatar, the supreme descension of the divine love of Sri Radha Krishna. So, to honor and to celebrate Sri Maharaji becoming and being honored as the supreme Jagadguru of this age, the 5th original Jagadguru, the supreme Jagadguru of this age, devotees across North India in different towns, they celebrated Sri Maharaji becoming Jagadguruttam. And floats and eye-catching processions were organized, and enthusiastic people with great joy and enthusiasm, they were chanting the divine names of Sri Radha Krishna. And after that, Sri Maharaji traveled for 14 years, detailing and describing the philosophy of divine love realization. And to recognize the prestige of Sri Maharaji becoming Jagadguruttam, few devotees had a throne made for Sri Maharaji, a silver throne on which to sit and deliver lectures. But in the year 1960 something, 66 or 67, when the war broke out between India and China, Sri Maharaji donated that throne to the defense fund of India. And by doing so, Sri Maharaji established that a Jagadguru is not one who is beyond the reach of common people like you and I, but in fact, he is their true divine guide, their true divine friend. In 2022 marks the 9th year in which we are commemorating Jagadguruttam Jayanti without the physical presence of our Supreme Acharya, Jagadguruttam Shree Kripaluji Maharaj. And while devotees in India, around the world, and here in Radha Madhav Dham, deeply feel the absence of his divine presence, but we desire to celebrate the legacy of his divine knowledge and his divine grace that is ever available to us. During his 90 years on earth, Sri Maharaji showered infinite treasures of divine love that we can avail of. Sri Maharaji revealed hundreds and hundreds of divine kirtans, the divine names, the divine virtues and the pastimes and the leelas of Sri Radha Krishna, hundreds and hundreds of recordings of his divine lectures are available to us, and they will stand as an ever-flowing font of divine knowledge for souls who are seeking the true divine path of divine love realization. And so those souls who will be coming in the future. And so Sri Maharaji's divine knowledge and his grace will, even though those souls will not receive his physical personal darshan with their physical eyes, but his divine legacy will always be available to anyone and everyone to fulfill their devotional aspirations. To fulfill their devotional aspirations. So, with these words, I conclude my lecture on the importance and the significance of this esteemed day, Jagadguruttam Jayanti. Srimad Sadguru Sarkar ki Bhakti Yog Rasavtar Jagadguruttam Shree Kripalu Mahaprabhu ki Bhakti Yog Rasavtar Jagadguruttam Shree Kripalu Mahaprabhu ki Bhakti Yog Rasavtar Jagadguruttam Shree Kripalu Mahaprabhu ki. We can all turn and face the shrine. Shri Radhe Radhe Govind Radhe 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 Shri Radhe Radhe Govind Radhe
राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे 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 राधे गोविंद राधे जीवन धन गोविंद राधे जीवन धन गोविंद राधे न भूलो मन पल छिन आधे जीवन धन गोविंद राधे न भूलो मन पल छिन आधे जीवन धन गोविंद राधे न भूलो मन पल छिन आधे जीवन धन गोविंद राधे न भूलो मन पल छिन आधे समीरो नित गोविंद राधे न भूलो मन पल छिन आधे समीरो नित गोविंद राधे न भूलो मन पल छिन आधे समीरो नित गोविंद राधे न भूलो मन पल छिन आधे समीरो नित गोविंद राधे न भूलो मन पल छिन आधे 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 जीवन धन गोविंद राधे न भूलो मन पल छिन आधे जीवन धन गोविंद राधे न भूलो मन पल छिन आधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे 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 श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की
जय।
श्रीमद् युगल सरकार की
जय।
जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे।
Welcome to Sri Raseshwari Radha Rani Temple. We welcome our out-of-town devotees and first-time visitors. Thank you, Diwakari Didi, for leading the Jagadguruttam Diwas sadhana we celebrated this weekend. We are so fortunate to have Sri Maharajji's Pracharak here with us and guiding and leading us with sadhana and Roop Dhyan. Please join me as we thank our Hari Guru. Similar to this sadhana, all the sadhanas for 2020 have been decided, and you can take